Yes, news about the ankle. This is the ankle game. The last one you thought is not. It's this one. We're going to talk with Matt Derrick, who's on the beat at the facility and knows what's going on with one four-toed particular appendage that's going to determine the outcome of the AFC Championship game this week. Bengals versus Chiefs. Welcome to Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. It is Locked On Chiefs today with Chiefs Digest editor Matt Derrick. We're going to get to all of it, but we're brought to you today by Ultimate GM. It's the game that you want to play that gets you inside, and you can get 100% free boost if you use our code Locked On at Ultimate GM. Go check that out. A lot to cover here. One burning question and a couple of details about as we tune up for what is going to be the fourth matchup inside a little bit of 13 months for these two teams. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, NFL 33 and RGR Football. Thanks for making us your first listen. Check out another show like The Draft Show. I would love to see you over there. The Bengals Show, because you want to know what the enemy's thinking. And anything else you can find on the network, because we're all free every day, forever and ever and ever. That's a Randy Travis song, but welcome. So, Matthew Derrick, you are the man on the beat. I need to know every piece of information about one right ankle of Patrick Mahomes. What do we know?
Well, there's a few things that we know, a few things that we're just guessing, and a lot of it's still up in the air. I mean, we should get a lot of clarifications on Wednesday, but what we know for sure is that, yes, the right ankle of Patrick Mahomes is a high ankle sprain. We don't know specifically the grade of that. We do know that since Saturday, he's been receiving daily treatment and rehab on that ankle, trying to get him ready to go. And that's essentially what we know at this point. I mean, you are hearing and seeing some sightings and rumors and everything on social media and everything. Andy Reid provides some clarity, but not a ton on Monday. The biggest thing that he at least explained to us and suggested to us was that this ankle sprain is not as bad as the one that Mahomes suffered in week 1 of 2019, also against Jacksonville, which, if that is indeed the case, is a good indicator because, remember, Mahomes didn't leave that game. I mean, he actually stayed in that contest. Now, part of it was because they were actually able to treat him right afterwards because, if you remember, that was the game that Miles Jack decided to go nuts.
Right.
And there was an extended break on that same play. So Mahomes was able to go to the bench. He was able to get everything wrapped up and take care of him. So that helped. But, he played the next week and had a great game. I mean, I think he threw for 344 yards. I mean, and yeah, he was definitely slowed a little bit in the first few weeks of the season, but, he was able to play through it. If that is indeed the case, that should be good news for Mahomes this week. Now, Wednesday's the first big test. We will see, one, if he practices, how much he practices, if he's a full participant or a limited. Right. The only portion that we're going to get to see is just going to be a stretch period. I'm expecting that, once again, that Wednesday practice for the Chiefs will be a fairly light workout. So probably no pads or helmets. All that we'll get to see is just a stretch period for the quarterbacks. Maybe we'll get to be out there long enough to see him hand off to somebody or throw a pass if he's participating. But the other big thing is that he's scheduled to talk to the reporters. It's a press conference on Wednesday. So we should get to ask him the questions as far as just how he's feeling, what the expectations are. What we don't know is, really, we don't know the grade of it. We don't know how much swelling there is in that ankle. There's a lot that could still change between now and Sunday.
Agreed. And because of that lack of information, I thought Andy put it really nicely that's about what it was. Wasn't that the quote or whatever it was?
When he was asked, I said it was reported it was a high ankle sprain, and that's pretty accurate. That's as close as you get to Andy Reid telling you anything definitive about an injury.
So yeah, there's a foot involved. We know that. But aside from that little quirk, one thing that I will say is when the quarterback says he's going to play, he's going to play. And he has come out and said that on social media. I think he's trying to reassure the fan base. I think that's important because we've seen what his will is. I think the last game demonstrated that for him to be able to power through that, to get in the locker room on his own power, get the x-ray just to get back out, to help watch Chad Henne do his thing until he could get back in. That says a lot about just what his motivation is and how dedicated he is to it. I have no doubt that he plays. The question for me, and the thing that I don't think the national media is talking about anywhere near enough, is that normally a quarterback would not be allowed to play with this injury. This is not something that generally you walk off, let alone inside of one ball game. Even if you do have to get through that initial injury game, once you take a rest, you sleep for a night, that swelling goes through the roof, you have all kinds of additional pain and things that bother your mobility, and that's the key here. We know he's a mobile quarterback, but I don't think we're giving enough credit to how substantial this injury is and what it can do on the field for him when he does get back out there. Is that something that is playing into the Chiefs' wishes, or is it playing against what they need?
Well, I think that's the magic question. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, this injury is going to limit Patrick Mahomes. It's not going to make him the same quarterback that he always is. I've had people ask me, is there a silver lining to this, in that Patrick Mahomes is going to have to be forced to be a different quarterback, and can that help, considering that against the Cincinnati Bengals he hasn't always been terribly effective? I mean, that is more than glass half full. I mean, that might be glasses half full, but you're saying it's 3/4. I don't necessarily want Patrick Mahomes limited, but hey, if you got a game plan around that, there's probably, to a certain degree. I mean, you have to try and maximize that. You have to try and take advantage of what the guy can do and maximize the things that he can do. But to your point, I mean, remember, even though Andy Reid did not come out and say that Harrison Butker had a high ankle sprain, Harrison Butker had a high ankle sprain earlier this year. It kept him out for 6 games. And essentially a little bit of the same kind of thing. I mean, same. I mean, in this case, that was the plant ankle. That was the one that was with the driving ankle for Harrison Butker. And that's where, you've got to be able to have confidence in that landing foot. If anything, the fact that it's the right ankle for Mahomes and it's the back foot for him, I feel a lot better with, because if it was the front leg, he'd be spending the entire time throwing off his back foot. And that is disaster for Patrick Mahomes. That is the last thing that he needs, as a reason to throw off his back foot. So in this case, he's not going to be he's going to be trying to avoid doing anything on that right leg as much as he can. That to me is fine. I mean, if you're going to have Patrick Mahomes limping around with a bad leg, I'd rather it be the right than the left.
I can understand where you're coming from. I said this earlier in the week. I don't think it affects him that much because of how he is as a quarterback. We're going to touch on that, as well as the gambler aspect of this game. Chiefs took a gamble, didn't quite work out for them. We'll get to that after a message from our friends from Ultimate GM. We are really pumped about our new partner and sponsor of today's episode, Ultimate Football GM, the mobile game. I know you've dreamed of being a GM before. This lets you do it. Hiring the right coaches, coordinators, trading players, making draft picks, navigating through free agency. It's all included. It's challenging. It's realistic. And you can get into it now. There's no limit. You can play 30, 40 seasons if you want. And right now, our listeners get 100% free boost when they sign up for their franchise with our promo code Locked On. It lets you be the ultimate GM. That's what it's for. You go to their game store, you use our code Locked On to make sure that you get it. Download the game. It's ultimate-gm.com, or you can look it up on the app stores, whichever you prefer. It's ultimate-gm.com. That's where you can start your dynasty today. I'd like to have a dynasty, Matt, and I think it's going to start with, if you were picking a franchise expansion club and you got to pick anybody in there, this is player number one. This is one of one. But in being able to pick and choose an injury, like you said, you think that this is a good option, that this is the foot that's injured. And I will put it this way, that I said earlier in the week, this is a man that can throw the ball 50 yards without his feet. He doesn't have to involve his lower body in order to hit those bigger plays. And he doesn't have Tyreek. So I don't see 60-yard air throws coming at us in this next ball game. Am I underestimating just how much it doesn't necessarily affect his high-end passing?
I don't think you are, and there's a couple of reasons for that. I mean, one is that we've got some evidence of that. I mean, this isn't the first leg injury and foot injury that he has dealt with. I mean, obviously he had the kneecap, but the toe injury that bothered him in 2020, especially in the postseason and into the Super Bowl, is a good example of that. And good and bad. I mean, on the one side, here he is playing with a torn plantar fascia plate in the Super Bowl that he lost, but he also had to scramble for about 500 yards in that game, literally scramble for 500 yards. And it didn't affect him in that standpoint, from a mobility standpoint and everything. Because, the two things that you're really dealing with once you get to game day, the two things you're dealing with that injury is that you're dealing with the pain management, and you're really just determining how much you can be mobile. Well, they're going to, you know better than I do. I mean, they're going to immobilize that ankle as much as possible. That allows him to run, but it's not going to force that ankle to do something that it can't do, because it's too weak to do right now. The other part of it is that, they're going to try and manage the pain to a point where, he can move and function and everything, but, it's not going to drive him crazy. The problem with Harrison Butker had, is that clearly in that case, the pain, because there was so much swelling in that ankle in his case that, one, it was just very uncomfortable. Two, it was unsafe for him to kick on. But, three was the pain management aspect of it, that it was difficult to be able to get the pain down to a level that he could play with while allowing him to still actually play. And it's something that doesn't get talked a lot about, and because I think we're all kind of somewhat uncomfortable talking about the NFL and pain management. Mm-hmm. This goes on all the time. Yep. It's the unspoken part of all of this, and one of the reasons why I even avoid talking about it, because I don't like to speculate, and it's not about talking about who takes what pain medication. That's pretty personal, and also so there's a lot to it. But let's be real, that is a big part of this case this week, is just getting Mahomes to the point where he's comfortable enough to play while, allowing him to be functional. And if they can reach that happy point, he's going to play. And by experience, he's going to play pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. It is management of every athlete at every point in this season. Do they have this acute injury? No. And we can't speculate with any accuracy about what they're actually going to do. But the two things that you do: control inflammation. You can do injections for that. Not a big deal. Something that happens in every sport every day. Pain management gets a little bit more complex because of all the implications of how pain is managed and what substances lead to further things. Both will be in play here. How much is the big question, because I come back to the fact that he recovered from the dislocated kneecap in record time. He has what appears to be a genetic disposition to some laxity, elasticity in some of his ligaments. That's a good thing in terms of recovering from injury. So there are going to be some things that make me feel like, yes, he's going to be limited. He's not going to be 100% 15 right now, but he might be 80. He might be 85% of it. And honestly, you're going to try to limit extension. And in the case of this injury, any kind of overpronation of that ankle, that's where it rolls to the inside. So that is a medial stabilizing strap-on type brace that can handle that. He'll still be able to push off with his toes. He'll still be able to move. It's just the difference between breaking the pocket and running around in circles like we've seen him do a million times versus breaking the pocket and delivering the ball to the sideline as a throwaway if you need to. I do feel if he gets the opportunity, and I think part of the game plan we'll talk about later in the week, folks, the Bengals have to guard the A-gaps in particular, because if they don't, he is certainly functional within the pocket, and if he steps up, his escape routes vertically down the field are going to be the most advantageous for him with this injury. I think he can still get first downs if he just takes off vertically. It's the turning that I think is going to be the bigger issue.
Yeah, and that's why I circle back, and I'm frankly comfortable with the Chiefs, coming up with a game plan that built around what he can and can do best. Because I look back at the games against the Bengals, and especially, the second half of the AFC Championship game last year. Where did he get in trouble? Where did the Chiefs offense get in trouble? It got in trouble because, they didn't want to run the football. They wanted to throw it. There was nobody open because the Bengals were, doing everything they could in the second half to just make sure that they didn't let anybody get deep. And there was nothing that in the middle of the field. And the Chiefs were just adverse to taking the dink and dunk and move down the field in small chunks. If this forces the Chiefs to develop, and I know people are going to just be angry at me for saying this and just take their streaming device and throw it at me, but if this turns Patrick Mahomes into a game manager for 1 week, this is the game to do it. Because by all evidence, whatever scheme that the Bengals come up with, and with their defensive coordinator, they're going to do something different every single time. That's what they do. I mean, he mixes things up extremely well, trying to find the next thing to do to stop Patrick Mahomes. But that they're going to challenge the Chiefs to run the football. This is your opportunity to do exactly that. That they're going to try and take away the deep play. So what's going to be open? A lot of short stuff, a lot of underneath stuff is going to be open, just like it was in the second half in the AFC Championship game. So if this turns Patrick Mahomes and Alex Smith for a week, I have no problems with that.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, and it's how they do that and what the spice is going to be. We're going to talk about what this game's going to come down to as if you're cooking a meal. We'll do that on the backside of this, because I have to let you guys know here, we're very, very excited about our newest partner in FanDuel. And they are the new sports betting sponsor for the Locked On Network, because they're the nation's #1 sports book. That's it. It's FanDuel. There's no way around it. That's who they are. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's even better for you. They have so many great features to make betting fun and easy. That's what FanDuel does. New customers, if you join today, you can get $150 in free bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Super simple. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/lockedon. And they have all your favorite bets right now. Chiefs are actually looking like a dog that you may be able to make something on. So check that out. The money line, the point spreads, all the player props, they're all in there. And you can even roll those together and do a same game parlay. That's a nice way to put a bunch of options together. It's all in the app, and it's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So football fans, do not miss this. Coming up on the AFC Championship game, you can spend $5 and you can get $150 in free bets off of that, win or lose, at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Now, I don't know what Matt's going to bet on, but I'm going to bet this. This is going to be a tasty game from a couple of standpoints. First and foremost, game plan-wise, I do expect them to take a card from Frank Clark and smell a little bit of blood in the water. I do expect some aggression. There will be blitzes. I tend to think that zone blitz is the way that you want to do this if you were the Bengals. So what does that do for the Chiefs? It means pepper, pepper, pepper. The 8 to 15-yard range is where you want to deliver the ball, not just to Travis Kelce, but to everyone on the field. We don't know about Mecole Hardman yet. He can still do those intermediate drags as well. You want to see Kadarius Toney over the middle. You want to see Juju. Those are things that if you get a nice 45 with a little bit of horizontal movement, you could turn that into yak. And yak, I think, is going to be the key to this ballgame, Matt. Do you see something similar, or is there another way to attack this?
I'm exactly where you are. I mean, I'm prepared for the idea that, the Bengals may try something differently defensively. Because like I said, I mean, Lou's always got some sort of wrinkles up his sleeve that he's gonna pull out on Mahomes and the Chiefs. But one consistent has been that they've always gone to, and it always has worked, has been, we're going to go after Mahomes with 3 and 4, and we're going to drop back 7 and 8 because they feel comfortable with that. But that means that there are opportunities, and and certainly running the football is one, and it doesn't always have to be running. I mean, the Chiefs' short passing game it can be absolutely effective in this. I'm with you. I mean, to me, that 8 to 15-yard zone is exactly where the Chiefs can feast. And obviously that's exactly where, Travis Kelce just absolutely ate up Jacksonville last week. So, the Chiefs have that club in their bag. They can absolutely do it. Chad Henne can do it if he has to. I mean, that's why, I feel like that the Chiefs, remember, and this is the thing that I think that we all do forget, we're not talking about the Bengals coming off 3 straight lambastings of the Chiefs. We're talking about 3 3-point games that have all been decided essentially by a play. I mean, you could pick a half dozen plays in almost each of these 3 games and say, if one of them went another way, the Chiefs win. That's how close these two teams are, and that's how close it's going to be. And that's, to me, it is going to come down to making those plays in the specific areas. And that's why if the Chiefs, capitalize on that, which is something that they haven't done in these 3 games, I like their chances.
I have to agree. And I will say this. I know you said they don't have to run, but I think they should. I think it helps Patrick a little bit. I think as we've been watching and waiting and complaining and deriding Andy Reid for not opening his bag, I think his bag has some toys in there that are in the run game. I think we saw a clip of it last week with Toney on that counter pitch. I think that's another way that you can get the ball into playmakers' hands that Patrick doesn't have to do a whole lot of running around. outside zone was a stretch last week. It's literally stretching him now. I don't know if they can go to that part of their bread and butter as much. Maybe they can. We'll see how he progresses through the week. Like you said, Wednesday's practice is going to be very telling. But I think there are opportunities, and I know I think you will agree with me on this, but I have a particular option I think that they should attack in the run game. And generally, when you have a strength on a defense against the run, do you prefer to go away from it or towards it?
Well, Andy Reid's philosophy has generally been to go towards it. I mean, Andy Reid's kind of guy that says, decides if he sees, Ray Lewis on the other side of the line, it's going to run right at Ray Lewis. So, that's typically what I would do.
I happen to agree with you. And I think that means that the guy who saved the game, made the big play against Travis Kelce and forcing that fumble in Pratt last year, a quality linebacker. I'm not trying to say he's a bad player. I'm saying he's somebody you want to go target and confront because he's not as good against the run as he is against the pass. And I think that you need to devise ways to get him one-on-one action so that you can break plays off of him, because I think it's there for the taking. Can Andy shift? And does this injury for Patrick make him shift to more of a balanced attack? Or are we just going to see more window dressing, more misdirection to just maintain what we always see from them in a 70% passing attack that everything builds off the pass?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think there's anything necessarily coming back too wrong with that. I mean, Andy Reid's going to be who he is. So I'm not expecting Andy Reid to come out and run the ball 36 times. The only way I see that happening is if the Chiefs get out to a 21-point lead and they're just padding it and do nothing but run the ball in the second half. That I could see. But that's one of 14 million timelines. That's not the majority of them. I mean, the majority of the time, Andy Reid's going to throw the ball 60 to 70% of the time, and that's going to be it. But it's, what it can't be is it can't be 80-20. It can't be that you're going to run the ball 6 times and Patrick Mahomes is going to drop back 48 times. That ratio is not going to work. I mean, you can't become that one-dimensional. You can't be that, predictable. And I'm with you. I mean, I think that it will probably be easier for Mahomes to do a few things on Sunday, assuming all goes well. I mean, he should, honestly, if everything goes well with his recovery and his rehab, he should be more comfortable than he was this past game in the second half, because he was clearly uncomfortable in that game. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, he was absolutely hopping along and limping. I mean, honestly, if he feels that bad again on Sunday, he probably shouldn't be playing. So I'm under the guys that if Mahomes plays, and like I said, I think he will play, that he will feel more comfortable. So maybe they can do some of their outside zone stuff. Maybe it's not the majority of it. But I also think that there's plenty of opportunities, and especially with the way that the Bengals are going to stack the box, if there's running light boxes, take the 3 yards in front of you every single time and fall forward, and you're going to put yourself in good positions.
I think this injury and the fact that this is a team that's beat you 3 times in a row only reinforces everything we've been saying all year, is take what's there, take the easy route. They want to play 7 in coverage, just take it. Line up Colin Saunders and Mike Burton in the backfield and bash them until they cry. I mean, that's got to be the mentality. And I think maybe we might get to see that because of the injury. We'll just have to see how that goes. One thing they won't have, though, is any kind of boost, I think, to the special teams, something that's been a problem all year. They lost a key contributor. They elected to release Chris Lammons. He was picked up by the Bengals. And I don't necessarily ever remember seeing this scenario before. But that is purely to keep him off the roster, right? Because he can't actually join the Bengals yet. Is that correct?
Yeah, under the way that the NFL waiver wire rules are, and I'm still trying to get why he wouldn't be eligible to come back next week, but a team, and even during the regular season, a team can't claim or sign a player from another team the week before they play that team. So, that's why he can't be with the Bengals now. I'm kind of unclear about why he couldn't be there with before the Super Bowl, but the league has said that the waiver claim will be awarded to the Bengals and become effective after the Super Bowl. So, yeah, this move, what it does is effectively bars the Chiefs from re-signing Lammons, either whether it's to the practice squad or back to the regular 53 if they wanted to. What's unclear to me is whether the Chiefs were okay with that. If that was a situation where, for whatever reason, they were going to go a different direction. Now, it's not very common that the guy who's played more special team snaps for you all season is not going to be a part of your postseason plans. So I'm a little fuzzy on that. But Brett Veach had to know this was a possibility. I mean, that one of the teams that was out there might absolutely do this, and it makes absolute sense for the Bengals to do it, especially since they're not in a situation where they have to save a roster spot for him or anything.
Absolutely. And that unfortunately takes me to my last question, and I think that might be the hardest one. If special teams is a little bit weakened and it's already had a lot of miscues this season, is that the X factor? We know they can't afford to turn the ball over. One turnover last game cost them. That was the difference in the game. They can't afford honestly to let run backs happen like they did last week against the Jaguars. Is this the X factor, or is there another player or circumstance that you feel is going to be the X factor in this game?
Well, I mean, I think that you absolutely cross your fingers for the Chiefs this year that special teams is not going to be the X factor. I mean, it could absolutely, and if it is, it's going to be in the negative side because while, hey, absolutely, sure, Harrison Butker can win a game with a 53-yard field goal as time expires, and that would be absolutely on brand and predictable in that situation. The fear would be that, yeah, it's a turnover or a missed tackle of some sort that is the big play on special teams. But to me, the biggest X factor in this game, and I think the one indicator that I'm going to need to see for the Chiefs to win is pressure on Joe Burrow. And here's why. Because the Chiefs have just not done a very good job of getting Joe Burrow to the ground. We know that. And it's happened at key times. But on top of that, I mean, the Bengals have also run the ball effectively enough where they don't have to expose Burrow all the time. So to me, if one, the Chiefs are stopping the run, they're going to force the Bengals to throw. If they force the Bengals to throw, they have got to get Joe Burrow on the ground. They can't just let him be in the pocket all day long and have forever to throw. They've got to get him down. They've got to create some sacks. They need some negative plays. If they don't create turnovers, you certainly need to create some 2nd and 13s or 3rd and 18s for the Bengals to be in. They can't be in short yardage third downs all day long. So to me, that's going to be indicative of a lot of things, because if the Chiefs get four sacks on Joe Burrow, one, it's telling me that the Bengals are having to throw because they're not running a lot, and two, the Chiefs pass rush is working.
That said, do you think that the defense is up to stopping the rush? We didn't see Joe Mixon earlier this season, so he will be back for the first time. Sponge Pete Ryan running off for over 100 yards. At the end of the day, we won't hear from you again until post-game. What do you think happens here, Matt?
I'm still cogitating on my score, and frankly, who's going to win? I mean, because let's be realistic. I mean, even though I talk about how close these games are, we've also been talking about the fact that the Bengals have owned the Chiefs. I mean, it's 3 games in a row, and we know that these are probably going to be close games. These two teams are good matchups for each other, and certainly the Bengals are a better matchup for the Chiefs than most any other team. They might be better equipped to challenge the Chiefs than anybody else, because they do have a quarterback that's almost as good. They've got an offense that's almost as good. They've got a defense that's probably better, got a special teams that's better, got a really creative coach and a good coaching staff. At some point, I think Andy Reid is going to outcoach Zach Taylor. It's going to happen at a big moment. If not now, I don't know when. I mean, this is the game that the Chiefs need to win for so many reasons. I mean, one, if they don't win this, I think it's just going to be bad on their psyche for a long time, even with saying, well, Mahomes wasn't healthy. I still think that's going to hurt, losing 4 in a row to the Bengals. They can't afford that. But two, this is a legacy game. I mean, and I keep saying, hey, this team has 2 Hall of Famers. Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce are going to the Hall of Fame. You get 2 or 3 rings, Chris Jones is going to the Hall of Fame. Creed Humphrey is on the road to the Hall of Fame. Trey Smith might end up in the Hall of Fame. I mean, you might have 8 guys on this team in the Hall of Fame. You get 2 or 3 rings, because that's what happens. Mm-hmm. If you get down to going to 5 straight AFC Championship games at Arrowhead and you got 1 ring and you're 2-3 in the AFC Championship game, your legacy is not what it could be. This is a big game. I think the Chiefs, I'm going with my gut here. My head is saying that you should probably go with the Bengals. My gut says the Chiefs are going to win. It's going to be close. I'll tell you my score. I'll check in with you later, Ryan. I will tell you after I see Mahomes on the practice field, know for sure. But right now, as we're talking, I'm going to go out on a limb and say the Chiefs are going to win.
Okay. Folks, we will check back in with Matt. We'll have a little clip later in the week. When we do our predictions, we'll try to share that with you then. Matt, thanks for taking us through where we are now. I know there'll be more developments, but we appreciate your insight right here.
Oh, well, going to be a busy and fun week ahead for everybody.
Yes, it is, folks, and we will be busy as well. We're going to try to do a 4-man crossover for you tomorrow to learn what's going on in Cincinnati from our hosts, Jake and James. So tune in for that, and I won't leave Chris hanging where he has to battle both of them by himself. I'll be there for this one. So we'll cover that. We'll go through the X's and O's. What has to happen to win this ball game on Friday? Give our predictions, and I'll check back in with Matt for his as well. So thank you for spending your time with us. Check out the Locked On NFL feed so you can get all the information on all the other teams, as well as checking out the draft show for me. I would appreciate that. You all have a good one. We'll talk to you tomorrow.